Well, welcome to the 700 Club. President Trump's plan for the U.S. to take over Gaza quickly sparked reaction from around the world, and the debate is only beginning.
Much of the Middle East opposes the idea, while many leaders in Israel and the United States say it's time to try something new. Chris Mitchell brings us the story from Jerusalem.
Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth supporting the plan, speaking at the Pentagon alongside Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu.
As the President and Prime Minister pointed out last night, the President is willing to think outside the box, look for new and unique dynamic ways to solve problems that have felt like they're intractable.
Netanyahu is also defending the proposal, highlighting what he sees as its benefits.
But the actual idea of allowing first Gazans who want to leave, I mean, what's wrong with that? They can leave, they can then come back, they can relocate and come back. It's a remarkable idea, and I think it should be really pursued.
However, many Palestinians strongly reject the idea.
We tell Trump that we will not leave Gaza, or an inch of it, and we will not sell our homeland. We will remain steadfast.
I am not leaving, neither me nor my children, family, daughters, or all my people. If we are going to die, then we will die on our sand. If they want to hit us with missiles or target us with airstrikes, we are still not leaving here.
Despite the strong opposition, polling data suggests that many young Gazans have considered leaving even before the war. A poll by the Palestinian Center for Policy and Survey Research found before October 7th that 44% of young Gazan men wanted to emigrate, while 31% of all Gazans wanted to leave. Some believe that after the devastation of 16 months of war and facing years of living in tents amid the rubble, those numbers will increase dramatically. Israeli Foreign Minister Gideon Sa'ar argues Gazans should have a choice.
As long as migration happens by an individual's free will, regardless of the location in the world, and as long as there is a country willing to accept that person, can anyone claim it is immoral?
Historian and former Israeli ambassador to the U.S., Michael Oren, wrote that Trump's proposal is changing the rules of the Middle East. Even if Trump's vision never materializes, he has fundamentally and irreversibly changed the conversation by upending long-held assumptions and introducing radical new ideas. He has opened the door to creative diplomacy and the possibility of a more stable and perhaps even peaceful Middle East. That conversation is far from over. Next week, the leader of one of the countries who has rejected President Trump's recommendation to take in Palestinian refugees, Jordan's King Abdullah, visits the White House. And beyond that, more high-level discussions with regional leaders are already on the horizon. Chris Mitchell, CBN News, Jerusalem.
Well, it's a fascinating new concept. Let's try to transform Gaza into something that could be a showplace. I remember Beirut back in the 1960s. I visited that city in 1969, and it was called the Jewel of the Mediterranean. It had an incredible amount of French influence, and they were a shining city, and all the religions got along and participated in government. Whether you were Jewish or Muslim or Christian or none of the above, you had a voice and you were respected. As long as Hamas is in charge of Gaza, you're never, ever going to see that. And what is happening is particularly the young men in Gaza are going, there's no future here. The only future for me is to become some kind of suicide bomber or some kind of Hamas soldier, and I don't want to join that Islamic death cult. I don't want to be a part of it. But if they ever voice that, they are killed. That's how Hamas deals with political opposition. So as long as they're in charge, you're not going to see this. But what a wonderful concept. And in that concept, I've got to point out what could be a fatal flaw. If you let people who want to leave, who want to have freedom, who want to have opportunity for themselves and their children and their grandchildren, if they have a mass exodus, what is left is the hardcore ideologues. And you can't build a jewel on the Mediterranean with that kind of population. They're constantly going to be fomenting and planning to attack Israel. That's in the basic ideology. In the charter of Hamas is to wipe Israel off the map. And that's the fundamental problem here, is that the Palestinians have never accepted Israel. Going all the way back to the San Remo Conference, the British mandate to create two states, the UN action in 1948, they have never accepted Israel. And they've always said they were going to drive them into the sea. That is fundamental to their concept of themselves as individuals. And until that concept changes, we aren't going to see peace. In other news, President Trump has taken a major step to protect women athletes. Gary Lane has that story and more from the CBN Newsroom. Gary?
That's right, Gordon. The president fulfilling a campaign promise, signing an executive order Wednesday to prevent transgender men from competing in women's and girls' sports. That move following his day one order calling for the federal government to define sex as only male or female. Charlene Aaron has that story.
The president signed the order on National Girls and Women in Sports Day, which is dedicated to female athletes in women's sports and those who are committed to providing equal access to sports for all females. The president putting his signature on the No Men in Women's Sports executive order, surrounded by a group of female athletes.
Under the Trump administration, we will defend the proud tradition of female athletes, and we will not allow men to beat up, injure, and cheat our women and our girls. From now on, women's sports will be only for women.
An about-face from Biden-era policies that attempted to change the meaning of sex in Title IX to include gender identity. The NCAA responding to the president's move in a statement saying the NCAA Board of Governors is reviewing the executive order and will take necessary steps to align NCAA policy in the coming days, subject to further guidance from the administration. The presidential order coincides with the latest video in an online ad campaign celebrating female athletes and backing those who support them despite criticism they face.
Riley Gaines and Sia Leahy are in hot water over their transphobic comments.
The nearly 2-minute ad, sponsored by sports apparel company XXXY Athletics, features several female athletes, including Riley Gaines, the former University of Kentucky swimmer who was forced to compete against a trans swimmer at the 2022 NCAA Women's Championship. The company doesn't shy away from its opposition to biological males competing in women's sports and invading women's spaces. Also putting out this video last year, encouraging women to speak up.
If you know that it isn't fair or safe to allow males to compete in girls' sports because it's, well, obvious, stand up.
The move comes at a time when a New York Times Ipsos survey from just last month found that nearly 80% of Americans oppose trans athletes in women's sports. And White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt called on the Senate to pass the Protection of Women and Girls Sports Act, which aims to protect women's sports by banning biological males from competing in female athletics. The House has already passed the bill. Charlene Aaron, CBN News.
Turning to the aftermath of those powerful California wildfires, now that they're finally contained, residents and business owners face a recovery that could take years. CBN's Operation Blessing is still on the ground there, helping to provide physical and spiritual resources. Wendy Griffith has that story.
The LA wildfires that broke out last month claimed at least 29 lives and destroyed some 16,000 homes and buildings. Many people escaped with just the clothes on their backs.
When the Palisades fire broke out, I had to evacuate so suddenly I didn't get to take much.
Operation Blessing team members accompanied the screenwriter to see the remains of her home, which burned to the ground when the fire swept through Pacific Palisades without much warning.
I felt so lost. Everything was cremated and incinerated. There was nothing you could recover. And I remembered that if you're lost, the only way you'll find yourself is in the service of others. I don't know what God has in store for me. My favorite verse is Mark 11:24. I hope that that's true. but I have to believe that he's going to put me in a better place than when I was.
Hot meals are also being provided for the volunteers helping in the relief effort.
And I have been sent out here with our disaster relief team to team together with Bel Air Church out here in Los Angeles, California, so that we can help to provide for people who have lost everything in these wildfires.
And this past Sunday, Operation Blessing and Superbook joined forces at 2 LA churches to bless children affected by the fires.
Who would like to pray today?
Reminding them that God is always with them.
The children loved again these activities and they were very grateful, but we are more grateful to have this opportunity to share with them the love of Jesus and the courage that they can have in any circumstance.
Wendy Griffith, CBN News.
Gordon, faith in action. It's great to know that Operation Blessing is there, being our hands and feet.
And it's there and it's going to be there because this is not going to be an easy cleanup or an easy recovery. After Katrina struck New Orleans, Operation Blessing was on the ground there for 2 years. And we want to be there for people, to let them know that we love them, God loves them, and we want to be his hands and feet extended to help people in desperate need. A lot of the headlines have focused on the wealthy neighborhoods that were destroyed, but middle class, lower income neighborhoods were destroyed as well. And those people are really in desperate need. So we want to help them. If you want to be a part of it, it's real simple. All you have to do is call us and say, I want to give to the Operation Blessing Disaster Relief Fund. So the number's on the screen, 1-800-700-7000, or you can write to us at CBN Center, Virginia Beach, Virginia, 23463. Just put Disaster Relief Fund in the memo line of a check, and your gift will go into our Disaster Relief Fund. And whether it's the mountains of western North Carolina, or the wildfires in California, the ongoing hurricane relief in Georgia, you'll be a part of all of it because this is a designated fund just for disaster relief. So you can go to cbn.com. That's another way to give. There'll be a place on the giving page where you can designate your gift. But do it now. Be a part. 1-800-700-7000.